Wanted to start with this because, as we talked about yesterday, Sam Pittman met with the media for Arkansas and had a few things to say. Nothing too crazy, I guess, other than just giving updates on injuries that I'm sure are 100% true and not going to change at any point in time this week. But it was just kind of whatever. He was even asked about the Texas game, the Texas rivalry, and saying it's a big game. He had him watch a bunch of film from like the 60s, from the 64 game, from the 69 game, trying to really show how much it means to the state of Arkansas for this game against Texas, which is great. And I don't think there's anything surprising. But what was really interesting was Steve Sarkisian, who's the head coach at Texas. Last time he came to Fayetteville, didn't go too well for him. Did not go too well for him. Arkansas ended up winning, I believe, by a final score of 40-21. Stormed the field, iconic game, iconic moment. Well, Sarkisian was asked about the rivalry of Arkansas and what it means and how big it is. And he had some fun with it, but some interesting comments to say about it, too.
This Arkansas rivalry sort of like underrated just because there's so much focus on A&M?
I think it might be underrated nationally. I don't know if it's going to get the same exposure that it would nationally, but I will tell you internally, it's getting the same amount that's needed, that it deserves. And this rivalry's been going on for a long time. I was joking with the team this morning. I don't know what Darrell Royal did to Arkansas back in the day, but they absolutely hate our guts. And I think we learned that the first time around when we went there. You watch some of the clips at the end of that game, and Joe Tessitore is talking about that Arkansas, hates Texas more than they like themselves. And he might be right. So I think from our perspective, internally we understand and value this rivalry, and it's great to have back. It's great for the state of Texas. It's great for the state of Arkansas. I wish nationally it probably got the exposure that this thing deserves. There's been some great games historically that these two teams have butted heads on, and so obviously we're looking forward to the opportunity.
So you hear from Steve Sarkisian talk about internally, it's a really big game, and internally it's a really big rivalry, but says it's underrated in the college football landscape. So the question is that just coach speak? Is that just crap and just trying to say, hey, that means a lot to us because it's a big game? Or do you feel like there might be a little bit of truth in actually saying that the Arkansas-Texas football game is underrated as a rivalry in college football?
I mean, it might be underrated right now just because we haven't seen it that much. And once it gets rolling, it's something that could probably build back. I don't know if it will get back to the levels that it was once at, but it'll probably become a bigger deal, I guess. But I think a lot of it is like a mixture of coach speak, and then he's just trying to do whatever he can to keep his guys as motivated as possible, moving forward through the rest of the season. I wouldn't say their backs are against the wall, but, they're in a position where they certainly don't want to drop a game to Arkansas, as they move towards the college football playoff. So whatever you got to say, if you got to show film of the field storm the last time they were down there or whatever, you do what you do to kind of motivate your players. I think it's probably some of that.
I think he's honestly probably speaking a little bit from personal experience when he says, hey, he doesn't think it's a big deal nationally. And he immediately referenced that 2021 game. I think he is a Texas coach. When he took that Texas job, it probably wasn't listed in his job description. Hey, you got to beat Arkansas, or hey, you better beat Arkansas. You better be prepared for that rivalry. So I don't know if he really knew how deep it ran and how serious Arkansas fans took it until that 2021 game when he obviously saw the atmosphere. And so now that Texas is in the SEC, there's a little bit to it. I'm sure part of him wants to get that game back, of course. But also, I didn't take it as coach speak. I think, honestly, nationally, I think there's a lot of people, my age and below, who don't know that this was even a rivalry at all. Like when I talk to my buddies, they're like, they have no idea. Like just because Arkansas and Texas, it's more of an SWC thing. And so I do think like nationally, when Arkansas and Texas play, it'll be a time for people to kind of notice, oh, these dudes really do care about this game. And honestly, Texas is the bigger brother in this rivalry, where Texas doesn't care about it nearly as much as Arkansas cares about it. So I think he was kind of careful and doesn't want to ruin that allure a little bit. But I think Arkansas fans are kind of content with those circumstances.
It's just really unfortunate that Arkansas, in any of the games that they consider a rivalry or has been considered a rivalry or whatever, they have a losing record in. The only one that they don't is Texas A&M. And I don't really think you can feel good about that when you've lost literally 12 of the last 13 games. So it's not like, we got that winning record. Well, your winning record was by 20 games just 10 years ago, and now it's really gotten close there. But even if it's against Texas, if it's against Missouri, if it's against LSU, any of these games or teams you feel like you have a rivalry against, you have a losing record in. So it is pretty frustrating. But looking at it from the Texas perspective, I think we all can agree that they hate Oklahoma number one. Would you guys agree that Oklahoma's probably their number one hated over Texas A&M?
Probably.
For now, yeah.
Yeah. So then you have Texas A&M. I put them at number 2. So where do you think Arkansas even ranks for Texas if they were really going through the teams they hate the most? Because I don't even know if it'd be 3 or 4. I don't even know if it'd be 5. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to speak for Texas fans because God knows I'm not one. But I'd be curious to know where on the pecking order does Arkansas even stack for a hated team in all of college sports or just specifically college football.
Yeah, I don't know who their other who else they would consider rivals. Probably nobody that they're still currently playing, I guess. But it's also like where the programs are. And so now they jump over to the SEC, and like Arkansas's having a decent year or whatever, but they're probably more concerned. Like I bet they feel like Georgia is a budding rival after they came in there and kicked their ass earlier in the year, and so you wonder what that's going to look like if both of those teams are still going to be high up in the pecking order of the SEC. So it's interesting. Like I see Heartbroken Hog here. He says, I'm 27 and Texas are our biggest rival. They still care more than LSU fans do. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't have a pulse on the Texas fan base enough to be able to really say that, I don't guess.
Yeah, I think it's a good point in terms of you compare yourselves to the programs of like just where you're at, the programs that are around you in terms of the national landscape. And so I think even programs like a Michigan, who Texas, I believe, had a home and home with recently. Some of these like big time programs, I think Texas probably gets up for those games more. I used to argue with LSU fans about this all the time because they would always be like, well, Bama's our biggest rival. And I'd be like, well, you're not Bama's biggest rival because Bama has Auburn, but Bama was the best team in the country, the best program in the country, the kind of standard that everyone compares themselves to. And I think Texas obviously sees themselves in that light. So I do agree, but I agree with kind of your point, John, though, that Arkansas might not even be in the top 3 to 5. Because I don't think Texas wants to view Arkansas as a rival. I don't think they want to view themselves as a comparable program to Arkansas. And good. I think Arkansas fans need to embrace that, though, that you are kind of the thorn in the side, that you're like the kind of annoying, presence that won't go away. And look, if you beat them this weekend, then you start looking at the recent history, and it's like, look, you can overlook us all you want. You can claim it's not a rivalry, but we're whipping your ass, and they can be a fun thing that way. I think that's the right way to approach it. But I don't buy the idea that Texas and Arkansas is ever going to be like what it used to be for all the old folks, where it's like really like the game of the century and it's this awesome thing that the entire country's looking at. But I do think it can be a fun thing from the Arkansas perspective.
Yeah, and that's what I think they need to lean into. It's just it being hey, more often than not, if not all the time, you're going to be the underdog against Texas. Because obviously in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, Arkansas was the underdog in that game. Granted, I think Texas went 5-7 that year, and Arkansas went 9-4. But at the time,
they were pretty high.
Yeah, they were like a top 15, top 20 team. So you had that, and then in the Texas Bowl, the time before that, I hate to say this, Razorback fans, so don't get mad at me. You cared more about that bowl win than Texas did. Texas did not care about going to the Texas Bowl against you. Charlie Strong was a coach that not a lot of people even liked at the time. And, you were coming off of a season where you hadn't been to a bowl game in quite a few years, and it was Texas. You cared more, and you won, and you dominated. But the time before that, in 2008, you got destroyed by Texas down in Austin. And then the time before that, you lost at home, and that was to a much better Texas team. So my point is, there's very few times where you're not going to be the underdog in this series, Arkansas, if ever. Just being honest. I don't see Texas going away anytime soon. Does that mean they're going to be a Georgia, Bama national championship I don't know. I really don't. But as long as Steve Sarkisian's there, and as long as they keep bringing in the talent, as long as they have that money, they're going to be a team that's going to be better than you almost every year. So you're just going to have to embrace, as Andrew said, being that little brother and being that little annoyance and being that little thorn in the side where those Texas fans are going to have to circle the game against Arkansas like LSU fans had to do, where it's like, dadgummit, we better not lose to those guys because they care so much about this game. It's like, I don't care about it, but they do, so I have to, because if I don't, then they're going to beat us. So you got to embrace that type of role. And I don't know if that's going to be enough for you to win this Saturday. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but that's about all you got right now with the Texas deal and what it is, the rivalry. But
is that where Arkansas is kind of at right now as a program, where I heard somebody saying this about South Carolina earlier in the week, which is like they just kind of like maybe they underachieve at times. Like they feel like they always lose some games they shouldn't, but then every year they kind of play spoiler and pick up a win or two and kind of ruin the seasons of other programs. Is that where we're at with Arkansas right now, where you can still have good years and win games and get to bowls and everything, but you're kind of like you're hanging your hat on just like pissing off teams who have bigger dreams or goals than you have at the moment?
It's the role of nobody wants to play us.
There we go. Yeah.
Gotta hope for, when it comes to November, nobody wanted to play that 2014 Brett Bielema team. Nobody wanted to play McFadden Felix in 2007 after they beat LSU. That's what you can hope for.
It's a good way to put it.
The record books. Do you want to play us today? If they say no, then you can hang your hat on that.
Yeah, and it's some people may say that's sad, but that's honestly your best bet. I mean, that's the best feeling that you're going to be able to have in these games is just saying, hey, don't want to play us because you never know. Arkansas is one of those teams. They're crazy. They're kind of like, I always look back to the maybe not the greatest example, but those Mike Anderson basketball teams where they would win so many games that they shouldn't. And everybody be like, why? Why are you doing this? Because no one knows how to prepare for them. No one knows what's going on. No one knows what their plays are running. There's not just a set way to do it. And I think that there can be an element to that for Arkansas and going up against these giant teams, as has been referred to as, is, we don't know what we're going to see. Are we going to see the Arkansas team against Tennessee? Or are we going to see the Arkansas team against Ole Miss? Are we going to see the Arkansas team against Oklahoma State? Or are we going to see the Arkansas team against Texas A&M? I don't know. We don't know. We have our predictions and all of that. But at the end of the day, your hope is like, hey, it's Texas. It means a lot. It's a top 5 team. It's your final SEC home game in Fayetteville. You got embarrassed the last time you played here. You had a bye week. You're getting guys healthy. So that's it. I don't think anybody should think, Arkansas is a better team than Texas if Arkansas wins this game. You may just be better for 3 hours, maybe in 4 hours. The best team in the country today. That's what you got to be. You got to be that type of thing. So I had to work that in there for Andrew. I'm glad you got it, Ellis, because I knew you would. But anyways, it's rivalry week. I wish I was feeling better about this, guys. I really do. I wish they would perform better against Ole Miss, even if they lost. I wish I could go into this game feeling like, man, maybe, just maybe. I have zero confidence in this team right now. Zero.
You should try to just detach any expectations one way or the other and just enjoy the moment. You're going to have a fun tailgate, John. It's going to be nice and early, first light, whatever you guys say,
Yeah.
And you get lathered up, as Sam Pittman says, and go in there and just watch Arkansas, Texas football and let the chips fall where they may, man.
I think
that's the right way to approach it. But I will say this, because, John, you said it's rivalry week. Is it rivalry week?
I don't know.
Obviously, we're talking, we talk about how, how Arkansas views themselves in the rivalry. But I feel like this is a good time for us to discuss. Should Arkansas be just picking a team that will actually embrace the rivalry? Can I interest you guys in a little Arkansas, Missouri, bringing the trophy, the battle line, the shelter insurance battle line rivalry? Should Arkansas just bite the bullet and be like, you know what? These guys want to be our rival. We've got all these teams that we view as our rival. None of them care about us. We know these cats care about us. And Arkansas fans would be lying if they said they didn't care about Missouri. Because how many comments every day in our show do we have talking about, did y'all see what Drink did? Oh, you see Missouri over the weekend? You guys care about Missouri. You love them. And you secretly care. So it's like, I don't know, maybe at some point Arkansas just needs to be like, F it. It's Arkansas, Missouri for the battle line rivalry. This is it.
That was one of the first things Sam Pittman said yesterday when he was kind of asked about adding this to the rivalries. He was like, well, Missouri's our rival. This is the first thing he said. He feels that way. We know he hates Drink, but still, we all do.
Bought and paid for by Shelter Insurance. So, and here's the thing. It's like, speaking of the rival, since we're on the discussion of it, I'd feel better about it, or I'd maybe embrace it a little bit more if it wasn't so forced upon in the very beginning. Like, that was the thing where it's like, you've been playing LSU at the end of the season for, since like 1996, I believe, is when that first game officially became the last game of the season. And then you got the news with A&M and Missouri joining, and that you weren't getting that game anymore. I still blame Jeff Long for that because I don't think he fought hard enough. But then they're like, all right, here's Missouri. And you're like, okay. As soon as like, hey, well, listen, it's a rivalry. Let's build you a trophy. Hey, it's sponsored by Shelter Insurance. And hey, it's even got a name. And it's going to be at the end of the season. It's going to be a rivalry. There you go. It's like, no, we haven't even played yet. Like, it hasn't built. So it's kind of like a forced marriage. I don't care how much you'll ever get close, or maybe that you'll actually make it work out. But it's still always going to have that in the back of your mind. Be like, yeah, but this still just, we were forced to do this. Like, did we really want to do this? We were forced to do this. And then we just grew to hate each other. So that's always going to be the back of my mind with Missouri. But again, if it would have been more organic, I wouldn't be against it. I honestly wouldn't. But it's still, even to this day, even from drink, just feels forced still.
When you never beat teams, it's hard for it to organically become a rival.
True.
Yeah.
Like, there's only, like, who are let's think about the teams that Arkansas actually has a competitive series with annually. Ole Miss. Yeah.
I guess Mississippi State, maybe. Like, it's kind of becoming pretty.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Over the last decade or so, it's kind of.
The fact that we have to sit here and say, yeah, I think maybe Mississippi State shows really how bad it's been for Razorback football. Exactly. But you're right, though.
Arkansas, Mississippi State, it has the least heat on it between any divisional game of, like, from both sides. Like, neither side cares about each other. It's just kind of like, hey, our fellow 5-7 brethren, what's up? You know, there's no real heat. But to your point, John, in terms of organic rivalries, that's what made that LSU game so awesome. Obviously, for me, I had a unique perspective being in Louisiana and being a Hog fan. So, like, growing up, I really thought LSU Arkansas was like the biggest. I thought everybody viewed it that way. But if you looked at it, I mean, you had obviously like the Miracle on Markham Part 1 and Part 2, the 2007 game, the 2010 Pour Some Sugar on Me, the 2011 Honey Badger game, like even the 2013 game where the 3-9 Arkansas team almost beat Odell Beckham and all that. It was really trending toward, like, there was so much recent history, like the programs had kind of accepted it, even though LSU fans were a little bit more reluctant. I felt like it was a legitimate rivalry game, and right as it was really about to peak, Arkansas got lucky because their program kind of went to crap right after they stopped playing LSU on Thanksgiving, so it probably would have faded away anyway. But it felt like there was a lot of momentum that just got killed, and now to your point, it's a little bit more of a forced situation. But you just gotta play with the cards you're dealt.
That's a great point, Andrew, because you think about the way it was building in that Arkansas LSU game. Like the 2014 game when you shut them out and you rushed the field because there's your first win. The next year in 2015, I remember it was one of the first times, and I'm not being serious about this. Like, it's one of the first times I've ever seen Death Valley clear out at night, like in the third quarter when Arkansas beat him. It was weird. But you're right. Like, it was building towards that. And the unfortunate thing is that Arkansas just really began to suck, and just really not have the way that they needed it to be and against anybody. But yeah, that could have been great. Could have been something special. But I think it's also just the national landscape, guys, because I always compare it to like when you're in a class as a student in elementary school and you show up late to class and everybody's already grown up in pairs and you're like, oh, and then you got to be with the smelly, stinky kid in the back that nobody wants to be with. But it's like, because it's like, well, you got to be in pairs and you guys are the only ones left. So here you go. It's like, oh, great. Thanks. Yeah. Appreciate you.
Did that happen to you guys regularly? Like, did you ever get paired with the hot chick or?
No, that never happened.
Yeah, never. I was never there early.
Yeah. Like, no, yeah. I'm always one that got just thrown in where either it was the stinky kid or it was like the teacher because there was an odd number. It's like, oh, you got to pair up with the teacher, and there was nothing more lame than that.
I always appreciate it. I would much prefer being with the teacher than the smelly kid.
I wonder why. It's like, yeah, but that's how it feels with this deal. But Missouri's coming up here later. They're a playoff team, though. They're a playoff team for to drink. So they got to get ready for that.
Staying alive, man.
Staying alive somehow, some way. Staying alive.